Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Kerrigan and Company. Great to have you with us this week. We have a number of friends that I haven't seen for a long time with me today, and keeping me company is someone that I have to tell you has a real appreciation for new restaurants, old restaurants, standby restaurants, hidden gems, and just food in general. And this is how he and I came to know one another, because I have a great appreciation for all of that, too. Let me assure you. It is so great to have the host of Wicked Bites, both radio and TV. But when I hesitate for a second, Scott Whitley, because when I say host, not only are you the host, but you do a whole lot of things. You wear a whole lot of hats.
I put a lot of it together. I mean, nowadays you really got to do all that. You got to wear a lot of hats. It's not like it used to be, 10 years ago. Everything has changed. Everything, in some ways, is better. In some ways, it's a lot worse, you know, but it's really changed the whole industry. And you're right, I love food, but I'm not a foodie. I don't consider myself a foodie.
Which I have heard you say that before, and I think that's so interesting. So tell me what it is about food that you like.
What I like is, first of all, we're doing a food show, and there's a lot of food shows out on television. I mean, the radio show's been on forever. I mean, that's one thing. That started
with your dad, correct?
That started with my dad back in the 70s, the 1970s. And at that time, it was the first food show in America. And I believe, and I could be wrong on this, and I've said this many times, no one's corrected me. It's the second longest continually running radio show in America other than the Grand Ole Opry right now.
Really, Scott?
Yeah. And it's every Sunday morning we take phone calls. We let people call in and talk about their places, their finds. And, they could praise or zing. I mean, that's been the topic forever on the radio show. And we, because of that show, have found some incredible places, because the restaurant industry, I'm sure you know, changes at a drop of a hat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a restaurant in my neighborhood that I went to. This is about a decade ago. I went 2 or 3 times, just didn't like it. It was just okay. The atmosphere was nice.
Everybody talked about it, and you went, and it just wasn't your thing.
It was just okay. And so I stopped going to it. And then somebody said, "Have you been to this restaurant?" And I go, "Yeah, I just didn't like it." He goes, "We got to go back. It's under new ownership."
Absolutely.
I had no idea. I went back, and it's a fantastic restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how quick it changed. And that was probably 2 miles from my house, and I couldn't even keep up on it.
Sure.
Years ago, the Mass Restaurant Association came up to me, and they asked me if I could put together a book of all the restaurants in Massachusetts, right? And I said, there's no way you could do it. By the time you published that book and they wanted to do it every year, it would be so out of date,
absolutely,
that you just couldn't do it.
I think it's so interesting that your dad started a radio show about food. Because
by accident.
Well, okay, and we can hear that part of the story, but it became such a hit, and who would think that you would listen about food and restaurants versus seeing it? And for me, even seeing it sometimes is tough, because I want to smell it, I want to touch it. So the idea, I mean, that's brilliant, and it's amazing that it's survived like that.
Well, I think the secret behind it is because it's the audience, right? You're not hearing it from me that says, "Oh, this is great." If I went and I said every restaurant is great, no one is ever going to believe me.
Right.
But the fact that there's a radio show where people call up and say you're wrong, which happens occasionally, because everybody's tastes are different.
Absolutely.
I like restaurants because, I might like the bartender, or I might like the atmosphere. Somebody else is going to go in there because they love the food. I always tell restaurateurs, and I meet thousands of them every single year. I said, you're in the entertainment business just as much as I am.
Absolutely.
And whether they understand that or not, I said, my job, a lot of times, I get people into your restaurant, but I can only do it one time.
Sure.
It's up to them to get those folks to come back. Mm-hmm. And I really think with the validity of the radio show, people could call up and they could challenge us if they would like to do that. But I think that's what really made it. And it was really a unique and unreal start, the way it all happened.
Yeah.
It was back in, we think, the late 70s. Now, there were no cell phones back then at all, right?
Right.
And radio was sort of in its infancy as far as talk radio was concerned.
Yeah, because nobody really had a way to call in.
Right. There was really no talk radio. And it was the Friday of the 4th of July weekend. And it was a really hot and humid day, and my dad just couldn't get phone calls. He did everything. He called the governor every name he could think of in the book. Just couldn't get phone calls back then. And then about an hour later, after he was reading the movie listings, pretty much, a lady called in. She started talking about fried ice cream. Now, back in the 70s, nobody ever heard of fried ice cream. And she started talking about Szechuan food. Now, no one heard about that.
Of course.
Now, this is how the show all got started. The owner of that particular restaurant called my dad and called the manager of the radio station at the time and had them come in. He says, look, I got good news and bad news. I would be your first sponsor of that show if you would do it again. My only problem is I'm about to file for bankruptcy protection. And that was how Whaley's got started in Saugus, and that's how the restaurant show got started way back when. And Whaley's at one time was up to 13 locations.
Wow,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so it all happened by accident, and then he just perfected it with his style. And luckily, I caught a lot of his style because I used to, before I came back, because I was working at WEI in Boston for probably a decade.
Right.
All the way up to like assistant program director there, under news and then under sports. I was there. I came back to help him out because he was doing morning drive. He had the old morning drive shift on WRKO and stuff, and he would do it on the weekends. He would do the restaurant show. It was just too much for him.
Of course.
So back then I was doing stuff with the Celtics, and we had these units that we could actually broadcast the signal back to the radio stations that were these little portable boxes. And I brought one into his house, and we became like the first show in America to use them. Now they're used everywhere.
Of course.
I
right?
have my own house now. I have my own
Absolutely.
studio. I just roll out of bed on Sunday mornings, and I'm on the air. Which is just so fantastic. But we were one of the first shows to do it on a regular basis.
I'm actually shocked that he was able to do it like that. I really am. And still, they were taking the calls back at the station.
At that time, they were taking the calls back at the stations. Now I do that.
You can do it at home
through my own studio.
Yeah.
But I remember one time he was doing the morning show, and I got a call like at 4 a.m. because I worked again, at another radio station in Boston, but we had the equipment in on the weekend for him. And he said, my mother calls me. She says, I need you to come over and help him out. I go, why? Because there's a bat in the house, and it's in the bedroom, and it can't change. He can't go in. He has to be on the air in an hour.
Oh, my God.
So basically, that was really the first time that unit was ever tested, when Marjorie Clapwood was back in the studio, and he was doing it from his house, and nobody knew that he was at home, and this is many, many years ago.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm even shocked at the fact that the quality was good enough that you could do just like that.
Yes.
Like you're saying, I mean, now, I do a radio show, and my producer's in one place, my co-host is in a different place, and you would never know, but we all do it off of an app, believe it or not.
Yeah. There's so many great apps out there. The quality of the sound has gotten incredible. Right. It's really amazing. And now it's really all streamed over the internet.
Yeah.
So anybody that has these particular units, we could be on that radio station in a day. I mean, I've done the radio show from Florida on the weekends. And just send it back. I'll do it from Hampton Beach, and we'll do it all digitally now and send it back to the studio.
It does give you a lot of freedom. There's no two ways about it.
And it's just so much easier setup.
So let me ask you about the restaurant industry, because you have been following, how long have you been doing the show?
I probably came back, it has to be at least 30 years
30,
now.
right.
I think I've been, it just became a point where I was traveling a lot, with WEI. I was going out to like Super Bowls and stuff, and baseball winter meetings and stuff. And you have a child and stuff like that, and you're traveling a lot, and you're working a lot. I worked a lot of hours, and I just decided, okay, I'm helping him out on the weekends, and it just become like the family business. I mean, I learned what he learned, and it just kind of like took over.
Sure.
And then I remember had to be 10 years ago, he asked me to fill in, because I would fill in from time to time. And he said, I'll fill in this weekend. Fine. All right, no problem. Could you fill in next weekend? And he never came back. Yeah. So he never really said officially retired.
Right.
He still does the voiceovers occasionally for the television show. He doesn't do it as often as he used to, but he still likes to linger. He sounds just as good as he did. I found tapes back in the 1970s on reel-to-reel, which I don't have a reel-to-reel machine anymore, so I had to have it convert. He sounds almost the same.
Isn't that amazing?
It's really amazing how his voice is held up.
Well, it's a fabulous, seamless, transition, which everybody hopes for success, that you can do that kind of thing, especially when you have a host who was as infamous as your dad. I mean, he was loved, and but making that
made it a challenge for me.
Well, no kidding. Yeah, absolutely. Those are shoes to fill, for sure. Sure.
Yep.
But he allowed you to sort of, intermix, which I think is a great way to make the transition. My question to you, though, is what have you seen as far as, and I know you've seen a lot, but I mean, what are the big trends that have changed in the restaurant industry?
Comfort food.
Comfort food.
Comfort food.
Really?
One thing I think that this whole industry has gone into is I still say we get overserved at restaurants, right?
For sure.
And
I couldn't agree more.
I was at Kitty's the other day in North Reading. Single-handedly, they get a ton of phone calls throughout the years, the decades on the radio show. But it's their portion sizes.
Yes.
And I was talking with the owner, Scott White, and he says, if I ever cut down my portion sizes, I would get so many complaints. So his chicken parmesan is not just one chicken breast, it's two. It's like an inch thick. Yeah. It comes with a salad that is huge.
That serves a family of four.
Yes, and then a full bowl of pasta.
Right, right.
It's really amazing. So I had that, I brought it home, I made 3 meals for us. I mean, that's how many meals.
Sure.
But I think the comfort food aspect has really taken over now, the industry. I mean, you see the fancier restaurants, they do okay, but not like the comfort food restaurants.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, too, because we're also into fitness and wellness and health. And I think that when push comes to shove, everybody just wants a little chicken parm.
Yes.
Everybody.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and there's not.
Yeah.
You're right. A good pasta dish does make you feel better.
Right.
I always love. I know this is crazy. I always love a good meatloaf if I can find it somewhere. You know.
Yes.
I mean, I'll take it. Whether it's posh or not, I do love it. Hey, we do this thing here called Fast Five. Okay. So it's 5 questions. We'd like for you to answer them in 30 seconds.
Okay.
And it's rapid fire, and we want to see how you do. Are you ready, Scott Whitley?
I guess I'm ready.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, and 1. Hot or iced coffee?
Hot coffee.
What is year-round?
Hot coffee was my answer. So year-round. Year-round.
What's one item on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
I've done so much. That is a tough thing. I would probably like to go to the Grand Canyon once in my life just to see it.
Who is the most interesting person you've ever met and talked to?
President Bush.
Excellent. Would you go to space if you were given the opportunity?
In a heartbeat.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you got me beat
I would
there.
like to be up there more than 2 minutes, but...
What skill or talent would you most like to learn?
Most like to learn. I guess... I always wanted to sing, but I'm a terrible singer. So that would probably be my go-to thing if I had it.
So I'm not going to space, Scott, but you and I do have the singing thing in common. And here's a little bonus question because you did so well. What's your favorite restaurant in the area?
Oh, now that is tough. In this area, Filippo's, which is right down the street. A great Italian restaurant. Filippo still has a home in Italy. And he goes back all the time. And the best time to see him is when he comes back because he always brings back treats from local restaurants there.
Yeah.
So I always head over to Causeway Street and Filippo's.
It's very authentic, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. The atmosphere is great. I do a lot of our office parties over there. There's a back room that we could shut off.
Yep.
And our holiday parties are always there. And Filippo is so entertaining.
Fantastic. Scott Whitley is keeping me company today from Wicked Bites, everybody. We didn't get to talk about the TV show. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. When we come back, we have a guest. I'm really looking forward to this. This is a woman that she and I worked in the same television station. She left the television station and she took off. And now she's about to produce her first full-length documentary. It's a terrific story, and we'll share it with you when we come back on the other side of the break. This is Kerrigan & Company.